if you're in a community where the prevalence of the disease is very low, it's probably reasonably safe to go back and playing sports. Whereas if you're in California, if you're in LA last month where 20% of the people getting tested were positive, there should be no sports going on during those times. So, outdoor sports, though, are significantly safer than indoor sports. So that's the single biggest thing you'll see. At least 20 to 50 times more infectious inside than outside. So this is why we didn't see huge spikes, during these sort of mass gathering events outside, but inside you really can explode very quickly. So the coaches and everybody, they're wearing a mask, they're doing the right thing, and then something happens on the field and they pull the mask down to start screaming, which is the worst thing that you can do because that really fires it. I'm like, please scream with your mask on. Or you see people with their mask and their nose is exposed, and that's like, well, you might as well not wear the stupid mask. So worst case scenario, car windows up, full, and somebody's asymptomatically spreading, I pretty much guarantee you by the end of an hour drive with a person in the car, everybody else is going to be infected.
Yeah.
Now, you can reduce that if the person's wearing a mask. If everybody's wearing a mask, you can significantly reduce it. Probably if you wind the windows down, you get some air circulating through that, that'll reduce it some more. Not a great idea to be carpooling with people that are outside your bubble. That is a pretty high-risk thing to do. If you wear double masks, you're starting to, if you've got like a surgical mask plus then a cloth mask over the top, you're getting closer to that magic N95 mask that we wear in the hospital. So you can reduce your probabilities, but it's more the sociologic things that occur when you're gathering like that. It's you wanting to hang out with your friends and eat with your friends and talk with your friends, and that's probably the highest risk thing. So just always be top of mind that's really where your risk is this close contact with people that are unmasked inside. Yeah, again, the data is slow to come in, but there is definitely a subset of people, even with asymptomatic disease, that can develop myocarditis, so an inflammation of the heart. And that's a very serious thing, because if you exercise while you've got active inflammation of the heart, you can have arrhythmias and you can die. And there's already some cases of this that have occurred. Now, it's more likely that you'll have this heart inflammation the more symptomatic you are. So we see this in the hospital a lot. If you're really, really sick with COVID, we see a lot of heart inflammation. If you are an athlete and become COVID positive, stop training. Just stop training. It's too risky. And don't return to training for at least 2 weeks after the symptoms have gone away. And if you've had significantly symptomatic disease and you're an athlete, you probably should have an EKG done before you go back. Maybe a thing called a troponin, which is one of the ways we check for this inflammation of the heart. And if you really were pretty sick and you're a high-end athlete, you probably should have an MRI. Well, you do not want to get this. Just in case, even if it's 1 in 50 kids develop significant myocarditis, that's a lot of kids because there's millions of athletic kids in this country and other countries. So it's, again, one of those things that your individual risk might be low, but overall, 1 in 50 kids or whatever number it is could be a lot of people. So another reason to not be, hanging out and coughing on each other and yelling at each other and mixing in groups. We want to be as safe as possible until everybody is vaccinated. But if you are really sick, like you say you've got your athletic kid and they were just out, like couldn't do anything at home for a week or two because they were coughing, they were short of breath and just had no energy, that's somebody that I'd also consider moderately unwell. And they should get an EKG and a troponin before they go back to activities. But definitely be working with your physician and sort of make some decisions about that. And if you've got a kid, it turns out they got a positive, they had no symptoms, they were completely fine. Yeah, I'd just follow the CDC guidelines. And in 2 weeks, if you're feeling great, you probably don't need to have anything done. So if there's any question, though, you've got to talk to your local healthcare provider and come up with a plan. There's sports and then there's sports. So if you are running outside with distances between you and the other athletes, that's probably low risk. But if you're wrestling and you're an asymptomatic carrier, and as you're wrestling that person to the ground, you're all over them, even with a mask on, that's going to be a pretty high risk thing. So masks certainly can reduce that risk, but it really is, there's sport and there's sport, and it's all about how close and how much effort and how much exchange of air is occurring in that very small area. So not all sports are created equal, unfortunately.